welcome to another episode of the In Full Bloom Book Club. Here we utilize the transformative power of storytelling to explore perspectives and to cultivate empathy, compassion, and connection. Our season theme is collective grief and trauma. The questions we'll be exploring this season are: how does trauma shape us? What consequences of collective trauma are we facing today? And how can we support one another in navigating collective grief? We are currently reading The Collective by Alison Gaylin. Physical and digital purchase options are in the description box below. The chapters we'll be covering today are 8 through 14. There'll be lots of spoilers, so if you're interested in reading the book, which we highly recommend, go read the chapters and come back to join the discussion. If you enjoy this kind of content and value what we're doing here, you can show your support by liking, commenting, and subscribing below.
So every episode we have a quote of the day. Today is my day to share a quote, and I chose a quote from Jeffrey Dahmer. And the quote is, "Looking back on my life, I've made others suffer as much as I have suffered." And I chose this quote because although from the book to that real life example, the motives were different, I think that in a case where you're premeditating to kill someone, I feel like that's coming from a place of suffering in some way, you're not well adjusted in some way to plan out something and follow through with it in terms of killing someone else. So I felt like this does apply to our main character, Camilla, and several of the other members of the collective. So that's why I chose that quote.
Let's just go ahead and go over the summary of this portion we read. So the chapter begins with Camille being officially welcomed to the collective after successfully completing her first assignment. She then goes on to complete various assignments and observes that her sleep, appetite, and productivity are better than they have been in years. She feels less powerless as a result of these actions, which she still believes to be a role-playing exercise. In the following days, she learns about some of the rules of the game, but not without bumping her head. However, after seeing her role play out in the apparent suicide of Ashley Shogger, who we remember as the hunting and fishing salesman from her first assignment, she realized this harmless game is all but harmless and far from a game. Camille struggles with doubts about the intentions of the collective during this time, but reconciles with 0001 quickly. She is then sent on an extensive mission, one that requires her engaging publicly with another member on a Reddit platform for a week. After a night of following the elaborate plan provided by 0001, the night ends with the two members pushing a car into a lake, with a man inside the trunk. Camille struggles with what she's been a part of and has to endure a waiting game as she waits for a word of her victim's disappearance to begin circulating. All in the same day, she hears both of his disappearance and about the accidental death of Harris Blanchard. She immediately knows it is the collective and is overwhelmed with the conflicting feelings both about his murder and the fact that his death was framed as a result of his attempt to do again what he did to Emily. As much as she is expected by everyone around her to be glad that he is dead, she finds herself torn. Not long after, she receives an invitation to Blanchard's funeral. In a moment of feeling triumphant over her daughter's murderer, she decides that she has to see Blanchard buried. We end chapter 14 on Camille deciding that she's going to Blanchard's funeral. All right, ladies, so we are going to take this first half and we're going to just go over our general overall impressions of this portion of the novel. Okay, I'll start. I absolutely love this part of the novel. Even though we haven't read the last part, I already know this is my favorite portion. I just already know. So much happened. This was the meat of the story, for me at least. I was at one point I was empathizing with Camille at certain points, but then at other points I was like, F you, you're dumb. Why would you do that? There were points where I was nervous for her. I was confused. It was just so many different emotions I was going through while reading this. And I loved that. I loved how much Alison was able to pull us in at this point. We were just right there along with Camille on this crazy ride. So I love this portion. Yeah.
My impression of this portion is basically like what she spent the beginning of the book fantasizing about, and kind of like her hate for the Blanchards was like fueling her. I think now that she has like gotten what she wanted, she is realizing like the it's not like the relief that she thinks it's gonna be. Like, I don't know, I think in many ways she's kind of seeing like, oh, I was in denial about this being a role playing exercise, but like now I see that it's real because everybody's seeing these consequences. It's not just different activities and tasks I'm doing in the cloak of night. Like, this is on the news. And I think she's definitely going to have to like kind of face some repercussions for her actions in the following or final portion of the book. I feel like the next part that we read, based on the ending of chapter 14, is going to be Camille kind of, you know, getting her wits back about her. Like, I think it's really gonna sink in, like, I'm really out here, like, accomplishing, like, murder. Like, I feel like she's gonna come back to her senses.
Yeah, this was a pretty jam-packed, action-packed section, and in conversation with Asia, I was talking about the fact that I think this would make a really good book series as well as a really good like TV series. Um, just like all the intricacy of the assignments and all the details, I think would be really interesting seeing them play out on a TV series. I think it'd be super. I think it's almost like, I mean, I don't know if this is the intention that Alison Gaylin had, but it almost feels like made for you to be able to visualize in that way. Like Asia and I both agreed that we could visualize it really well. Um, I think I was really surprised by Harris Blanchard's death. I guess this is not like that. I guess it was kind of like the second half of this portion, which would make it not super early in the book, but it feels kind of early in the book for him to already have died. So I'm wondering how much of the rest of the narrative is going to be her like a battle against the collective, or her like it seems like there's gonna be a lot of that. I think maybe I expected it to be in like the last chapter or two. She was really like dealing with that. But yeah, a really interesting portion.
How would you describe Galen's voice and tone in this novel? What role do they serve in character development, plot, and in the overall experience of you as a reader? I would have to say, like, the voice, for me at least, like, it's not all that like striking, or like it's not leaving that much of an impression. I feel like, well, I think it could be intentional because Camille is kind of like numb. I think like something really traumatic happened. So even when I'm reading certain things that she is thinking or saying to other people, it's never really like emotion packed or particularly like sassy, or even when she's annoyed with someone, it's very dry. In terms of the tone, I would say, I don't know, it's just like a very like gray, kind of like cold, almost like depressed tone. And I think that's because it's from the perspective of Camilla. Um, and I think in terms of how does this like move the plot along, I think we definitely see we can see her changing from the beginning of like, from the very beginning when she was at the Blanchard's ceremony, to somewhat of like a peak in the book when she's looking at this man in the trunk. Like, we see her almost increase in emotion, if you will.
So I had a difficult time kind of answering this question. Um, because it's written in first person. Um, it's I can't really I haven't read any of Alison Gaylin's other works, so I don't know how much I can distinguish between the voice of Alison Gaylin and the voice of Camille. Like I don't know how much of it was intentional to project like a certain understanding of the character. The only thing I was considering in terms of voice is that I think it's clear that Alison Gaylin is very interested in a discussion about how privilege impacts accountability. And even when it's not so explicitly stated, there's a lot of conversation in the writing about um, how certain characters got away with this, or the billionaire didn't, went to what they call club fed, so like a federal prison, which is often like regarded as being less harsh conditions than like other prisons. And those are where like quote unquote white collar crimes, people who do white collar crimes are sent. So, anyways, there's a lot of conversation about like how privilege account impacts accountability and what that looks like. I'll say the tone, like it does have kind of a bit of a mysterious tone in some cases. And by mysterious, I don't mean like the lurking type of mysterious, but like even the way some of it's written, like the way the plot unfolds, or even the way they announce that something's happening, there's a lot of like ellipsis, and there's a lot of just ways of kind of like dun 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 type of situation, in a less like dramatic way, because I would agree, Elena, it's not like the tone is not, there's a certain modernness to it and a certain like casual and simplistic way that it comes across in the writing style. And so I wouldn't characterize it as like dramatic at all. But there is like in a more modern way a sense of like mystery there.
Well, like you both, I haven't read anything by Alison Gaylin, so I didn't have that prior understanding of how she writes to kind of formulate my idea. But um, I kind of so like a lot of the things you kind of mentioned, y'all mentioned, just there's a little bit of a dryness to Camille's words and how she describes her experiences, which I think just ultimately adds to. So if you remember in the first portion, she was um, kind of describing her life before her daughter's death, and how she was this blonde, and she kind of lived that like that stereotypical kind of middle class woman, the blonde, with the, what she said, she had like a boob job or something. She kind of lived in that stereotype. And then tragedy struck, and then, that she was stripped away of all of that. And that comes across very clearly in how she communicates the experiences she's going through. It's very dry, it's just solemn almost. Yeah, it does lack a bit of emotion, but I think in Galen doing that, it allows her we to realize how much trauma she has undergone. Ultimately, that she's no longer that person anymore, and that she can see kind of how she was almost living in a fantasy in a way.
I do have one more thing to add in terms of how the author's voice contributes to my experience as a reader. Kind of like what you were saying, Tia, about it having some mystery to it. It's like me as the reader, or like anybody reading this, is gonna kind of like fill in the blanks with their own personality, like where it just kind of says what happens rather than how to feel, or you or Camilla directly stating like, oh, this is how I felt. You kind of have to put yourself in her shoes. And I think that aspect of the open-endedness of the tone, it's like, I don't know, you kind of have to like fill in the blanks, and it can be very subjective from reader to reader. So I kind of enjoy that I'm kind of like, it doesn't feel so spoon-fed with some other books when the main character has such a strong personality.
I like that. I resonate with that. I think it's almost like that she left it up to us to color the experience ourselves with our own, like, us kind of stepping into her shoes.
Our next question is: in a private message between Camille and 001, Camille refers to herself and the women of the collective as monsters. 001 replies back in agreement, comparing them to King Kong, Frankenstein, and Godzilla. 001 proclaims, none of these monsters are evil. It's the evil it's the evil of others that makes them powerful. Beaten down by the world, shunned, robbed of what they love, they don't curl up and die. They don't apologize. They fight back. They get bigger, stronger, more terrifying. You are a monster. We all are. Be grateful for that. Let's reflect on Camille's journey with grief, considering her through the lens of the aforementioned quote.
I would like to just say that I absolutely love this quote. It's probably one of my favorite quotes in this portion. Um, well, I also want to start by saying, like, I love 0001. uh, she is that woman, or whoever, she, them, whoever they are. Um, I just think with her response to what Camille said is so thoughtful. Um, I think it shows ultimately, one, that 0001 has gone through like several stages of grief, and she's had a lot of time to reflect on the circumstances and everything that's happened. And so her response is just not even her response, not only her response, but like how she just operates. It's very intentional, very purposeful, and thoughtful. Um, uh, it's almost so she comes across as like not emotional or clouded because she's like her judgment's not clouded because she's super emotional. Which I think if you flip that on its side or on its head, that's exactly what Camille is. She hasn't allowed herself to grieve really in the way that will allow all those emotions kind of come out. She's still very much so in like the beginning of that grief, even though it's been years since her daughter's passing. Um, we're only just really kind of starting to see her actually start to grieve. So she's very emotional and her judgment's not always there. And that's clear when she has this conversation with 0001. 0001 is very like concise and like structured in the way that she operates. You couldn't tell her otherwise about what she believes. She's very firm and strong in what she's doing, she wholeheartedly believes in it. You couldn't tell her that she's doing anything wrong because she's like dealt with it and she's, um, made peace with where she's at. And so I think that's a really cool juxtaposition to notice between Camille and 0001.
I think considering the commonalities between the women who are compelled to join the collective and understanding them, um, not just from the lens of like impulse and hurt and suffering, but almost from this empowering kind of narrative that 001 uses here is really interesting. Kind of like this idea that that rage inside of you, that desire to make something and do something about this pain and suffering that you're experiencing, that's necessary, and that there's strength in that. I was listening to a podcast the other day. I want to say it's called the Huberman Lab. I think that's what it's called. It's a pretty big podcast. I apologize if I'm butchering that name. Conversation he was having on that day, he had an interviewee. They were talking about the concept of generator versus projector, and a generator is someone who wants to will things into existence, whereas a projector is someone who's more maybe reflective and more observative. That's the correct word. And just like the idea that Camille and a lot of the other people who are joining the collectives are generators. They're people who want to do something. Like even if you think about the Brayburn incident, I think that literally was like she had a restraining order or something like that. Correct me y'all if I'm wrong, but she had like a restraining order, I think for a year or two. And I think it was like that day. Like she didn't wait not a day more than she was like than what the restraining order required. Before she was like back in action to like do something. Even her packing up Emily's room after the fact, because she was focused on, she said she was trying to like get rid of any evidence that could suggest that she was all of these things that the media was making Emily out to seem, or anything that could corroborate the narrative that maybe the defense was trying to put upon Emily. And her kind of being able to compartmentalize out of like, I'm emptying my deceased daughter's room right now. You know what I mean? Like her ability, like that was necessary for her to have that generator energy. And yeah, that was I don't know, that's a beautiful point of reflection on who Camille is, and understanding maybe the women of the collective altogether.
Yeah, like mind you, it's been a while since I've seen or read some of the literature that these monsters are being pulled from. But like I know like King Kong, he was like paraded around as like a spectacle and kind of like a circus freak, if you will, at least in the movie that I saw. Or like Godzilla, I think that was something with radiation. And I think similarly to like how these characters kind of represented like some flaw or shortcoming of whatever society they were like based in, the collective, I think it's kind of like a direct result of a justice system that is not really concerned with justice. Like, I think if the people who harmed the children of the collective, like let's just say they went to jail or they were held accountable in some way, I I personally don't think that the collective would exist because they would feel like maybe their children's killer going to jail wouldn't fix it or bring them back or make them feel completely better. But I think that like the insult upon the initial injury of the loss, the insult of like now Camilla's seen as like the crazy lady. Like I think that's what kind of sends them over the edge, like the injustice portion of it. And then the court of public opinion kind of siding with the person that has the most power. Like I think that is definitely what fueled them or gave them power to organize in this way and kind of take justice for themselves.
Elena, you I think underscored once again the idea that like Alison Gaylin seems to really want to communicate this idea about privilege and accountability, because I think in some way she's suggesting that like the privilege and the injustice encourages or even necessitates this type of rebellion and like vigilante type of justice. You know what I mean? And again, I think that's really interesting.
I also want to say that I also really like this quote because the term used to describe them as monsters is a perspective. And from 0001's perspective, is she is doing this um, as retribution, as I am trying to almost balance the scales in a way. But to some others, it looks heinous and it's this negative connotation. But she takes that and runs with it. It's okay for it to appear to some people as one way, as long as she feels like grounded in what she's actually doing. That's all that matters. And as a quick reminder, please go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate that. That will help further push our channel and get it out there circulating, help us in our algorithm. So yeah, especially if you really like what you're hearing so far.
Alrighty. So the game that we're about to play is called Kill, Marry, F That. So it's obviously a variation or based on the game. Well, y'all know the game. And that's usually where you have like a person and you assign each to those three categories. So for this activity, we will each select moments from the book, from what we've read so far, that is, and determine whether we would kill, marry, or F that. We'll take turns sharing our selections, and I'm going to explain really quickly the breakdown for what each word refers to. So kill refers to any moment in the book that you didn't enjoy for whatever reason, whether because you found it bothersome, annoying, stressful, infuriating, etc. This is just a note for us as hosts. Please focus this part on like your feeling about the moment and try not to make it about like the feelings of the author. Our purpose is to reflect on our experience with the novel and not necessarily to provide critique, constructive or otherwise. Marry refers to any moment that we love. So maybe we felt inspired by it, we found it heartwarming or thrilling, and just overall stood out in the best possible way as one of the things in the book that you really enjoyed. And the F that refers to any moment that will result in a oh hell no or couldn't be me type of moment, like anything that's that. So whether it be like cringy, stressful, just stupid, anything that made you like palpably uncomfortable or made you shake your head in contempt of the situation or the character. So hosts, let's just take a moment so we're not like thinking off the top of our dome. I'm not gonna thinking off the top of my dome, and take a moment to maybe write down what we want our moments to be, and then we'll go around and share. Cool. So kill, marry, F that. I'm gonna kill any time that Camille said that it's just a game. I can't tell y'all how irritated I am by the fact that old girl found a group on the dark web and said, this is a game. Y'all just playing for fun? I got you buying knives and sending it elsewhere for kicks and giggles? I don't understand. I don't understand how she could be this deep into it and still feel that way. And every time they said that, I was so annoyed. I'm gonna marry this particular. Honestly, I would marry all the intricacies of the assignments, but I specifically got so excited by these like this certain series of events that came together. So I wrote in my notes, knife, Paris Blanchard, bachelorette. So the fact that she purchased the knife that would essentially frame Harris Blanchard, like post death, frame him for like trying to attempt to rape the girl. Um, the fact that she purchased that knife, the fact that she purchased it, and 001 when she purchased it was kind of like, I think she was telling her like not to be so nervous about the interaction between her and the person, or she said something along those lines. And Camille was really worried about sticking, or no, she was saying don't worry about the ID, like that's normal. And the fact that they got rid of the person she bought the knife from so that he wouldn't even be he's not even able to identify her because he's gone. He was a part of the plans for the collective as well. Also, the fact that the bachelorette party situation was both a alibi for her actually being present at the death of I think of the billionaire guy. I think his name was Gary, and then also so that no one would question her in regard to Harris Blanchard's death. The intricacies, like 001 thought of everything. And I just love that so much. And then for the F that, all the games that Camille likes to play when it comes to following the rules. Like 001, this is some serious, once again, we're on the dark web, first of all. And 001 gets rid of people as a hobby. This is what she does. So like if you're threatening the collective, you are walking in fire, Camille. And so F that, it couldn't be me. It couldn't be me talking to old girl. She said, don't talk to me. If the girl is trying to talk to me, I have nothing to say to you. I'm mute. What are you talking about? I'm literally mute. And that's crazy to me. So yeah, for sure.
So for kill, this was like such a minor scene, but when Camille was buying the gun and the man Ashley was like trying to hit on her, and then he got a little entitled, like I think it was some remark about you should show people your ring or something, or let people know that you're married. It was like a weird like entitlement thing, and I just was ready to like kill that because I think we've all interacted with some man that was just really entitled to us, and yeah, I didn't like that. Ironically, I feel like I chose for Mary the fact that the members of the collectives break the rules. Like, I love that they communicate and they just like, oh yeah, she be killing people, we be killing people. I don't care. Like, they're just like talking, like they just communicated, talking about the Bachelor. They're giving each other real names. Like, I think it adds so much to the plot. I think. Like, how boring would it be if they were just like, oh, 001 said we can't talk, so we're just gonna not talk. And then F that was Cam about to give herself away to 001 for breaking the rules, saying, about to say, oh, I saw the news and we looked in the trunk. And like, I was so nervous for her. I'm like, she can literally end you. Like, why are you talking to this lady? Like, I was so upset with Camille. I'm happy she like checked herself and was just like, oh, I saw the news. But that had me on the edge of my seat. Like,
My kill is when Camille confronts 0001 about when she realizes it's not a game or whatever. So I chose that as a kill because for me, you knew what was going on. So let's stop playing these games. Let's not do that because I can't see, like what you were saying, T. I just can't see how with everything that's going on that you really think that nothing's like she's just setting this all up just for y'all to go on like a scavenger hunt and just no, you're she is so in denial. I don't even know if she's in denial. I just think she really just want to like have plausible like deniability. Honestly, that's why I feel like you're just doing this just because in the end of it you want to be like, oh, I didn't know what was going on.
Well,
Okay.
she did say something like that. She did say, like, I don't know if I was just in denial or like I just wanted to believe that it could possibly be a game. She did, to be fair, she did end up saying that later.
But doing too much. So that's my kill. My Mary is very similar to what Tia said. It was specifically just the Bachelorette bar moment because I was following it, and when her partner, I think her name was Wendy, she was like getting really drunk, and I was like, things are finna go left because my girl is not. She can't carry out a mission, especially if they have to go kill somebody. She's not the one I want to be with. But then for her to like, they like get to the car and she's like sober, and I'm like, oh my god. And then before they even get to the car, the waitress, she like was like, "You're good." She called her sister. She called Camille's sister, and I was like, oh, they everywhere. This is so. I love that she was serving her like non-alcoholic drinks the whole time, and Wendy was playing the hell out of that role, and I was like, wow. I love that whole moment because I was really like so nervous for them, and I was like, they cannot complete a mission like this. So I love that moment. So like, oh, chef's kisses. And then my F that is when Camille was following the surgeon. What were you doing? What were you literally doing? I hate that moment. Why were you on his bumper? Why? And like she just what like really like grinds my gears. She knew she shouldn't be doing it. She was saying the whole time she shouldn't be doing it. And it was like, so why were you? So literally, why were you? Oh, I was so nervous the whole time I was reading it. I was like, he's gonna hit you with something real weird and like I just was like, no, you gotta like ease off, like trust the process or something. I was just this is too much. It was so stressful. That really irritated me when she did that. But yeah, those are mine.
Bless her soul. All right. That was cool, y'all.
Hey, Tribe. Before you go, we wanted to chat with you about how you can help your fellow humans navigate collective grief and trauma. This season, each host has chosen a charity to share with you all. The charities we've selected have missions that address collective grief or trauma in some way. hope is that you'll find a charity whose mission aligns with your hopes for humanity.
You can check the description box for links to our fundraising pages. We encourage you all to explore the websites for information about each organization's impact and ensure you're making an informed decision when giving. InfoBloom Media has no affiliation with any of these charities or crowdfunding platforms. Thank you all for your consideration.
Journey well.